My name is Courtney Colson, a female to male to female detransitioner, and on this channel we try to figure out what the hell is wrong with me. On this episode we'll be doing a Q&A, and I'll be giving a little bit of an update to my detransition. I won't go too much over everything I've already covered because there's a lot, so go back and watch everything else. I have intended these videos to be watched as a series because it's just so much. If I had to go back over everything every single time, we would not make any progress. First of all, I apologize for the air conditioning being on. It's hot, and I wanted to wear this costume, so I'm gonna have the air conditioning on, so apologize if the audio isn't up to my usual standards. Also, my fan on my laptop's ridiculously loud anyway, so... And finally got my Ghost in the Shell outfit together. I cut this wig a little while ago. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw it, months ago. But just did not have the energy or the time to make the gloves. Did that this morning. I feel actually pretty good today. I have chronic fatigue syndrome, and it seems to have been getting better progressively, and especially since I stopped taking testosterone for whatever reason, it has continued to get better and better. But still have ups and downs. This past week, I haven't really gotten up to much. Been dealing with a fair amount of convulsions and pain and stuff like that. But yeah, today I was slow to wake up, but once I got going, I was pretty good. I made these gloves in maybe an hour or so. I detransitioned because I came to realize for the past 5 years I've had some kind of dissociative, psychotic episode, I don't know what you want to call it, but I was basically possessed by a robot, a male android. His name is Connor, and this is what he looks like. And he had complete control for 5 years. I was not present at all. And then I just woke up one day. And it's not like I blacked out. It's not like I don't remember the past 5 years. But it's like watching it through someone else's eyes. And, well, Connor started writing a memoir. I'm finishing the memoir. It's called Soul of an Android. It's going to be from both of our perspectives. And going back in and seeing what he wrote was really kind of disturbing, I suppose you could say, because it wasn't how I would think or talk or anything, and he's very different from me in terms of personality. To be around me during the time I was Connor and as Courtney, I don't know if you'd necessarily notice, it wasn't like a split personality thing, like Split with James McAvoy, where it's a completely different character, it's very exaggerated. It's much more subtle. But now I'm talking about it more openly with my friends and family. They are saying, well, yeah, you talk differently, you sat differently, you walk differently. So it was like I was possessed by another person. And I can't even describe how disturbing that is. It's the only word I've got for it. You don't feel safe in your own body because you feel like someone else could take over at any moment. And so far since detransitioning, we used to switch back and forth quite a lot, and then that's become less and less the case. But there was one situation recently where I got into an argument with one of Connor's friends. I mean, she's my friend too, but see, when I switched over into Connor had to learn to be friends with my friends and feel anything for my friends and family all over again. And same thing's happening now, where friends that Connor made, I sort of have to try to develop a relationship with them as if it was for the first time. And so Connor was, as an android, he is submissive, he is infinitely patient and indulgent of other people's bullshit. I am not. I'm quite assertive and dominant and direct, and I apologize if you can see there's a fly going around. I've tried to kill all the flies. There's just more and more of them. It's going into autumn. We're going to autumn, so hopefully it won't be dealing with the heat and the bugs and everything. But yeah, I had a bit of an argument with this person. I was just basically putting my foot down and saying, I would like you to be a bit more communicative with me, just so I know you're alive. And Connor didn't like that. So after that discussion with that person, I think I may have blacked out. I don't know. There was this inner conflict between the two of us. And then I don't know what happened after that. I have these nightmares of Connor taking over again and cutting my hair off or going through surgery or any of those things. And I don't think he would, just given his moral code and stuff. I don't think he'd do that, but there's still that vulnerability that, most people can rest assured that at all times they are themselves. They're in control of themselves and they won't do anything that they wouldn't want to do. I can't really. I mean, I've never... Well, I can't really. I mean, I almost had a mastectomy. I almost did all these horrible things to a perfectly good body. And at the time I thought I wanted that because, well, that wasn't really me. But yeah, otherwise, he's slowly going away. And I don't feel that kind of dysmorphia or dysphoria as much anymore. Although, I'll get into that later, just in terms of what my dysphoria might have been. But focusing on other changes I've been through lately. So when I stopped taking testosterone, I was on a very low dose because I just couldn't handle it. And then I was weaning myself off and then completely stopped. And I thought, well, because I'm on such a low dose, I stopped transitioning because I realized I didn't really look like a man. And then detransitioning, I thought, oh no, I look too manly. So it's just damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I really was worried that, that's how I'm going to be stuck, just straight up and down, no tits, and just, a very masculine shape. And then all of a sudden I had this false pregnancy, and I went through the whole thing, like, belly, boobs suddenly developed, I was lactating. That was the weirdest part, I suppose, out of all the weird... Morning sickness, it was... So, I guess suddenly all these female hormones were taking over my body. Oh, and I was still on birth control, because the testosterone was really low, and I was still getting periods, so I was on birth control and testosterone, so when I stopped taking both at the same time, I guess my body just went haywire. But I was still quite boxy. I had boobs, but that was about it. And then, over the past couple of weeks, I just tried on a skirt I bought maybe a couple of months ago. It didn't fit me, and I planned on letting it out. And tried it on the other day. Fits perfectly. So, my waist is narrowed by about 4 centimeters, I think. And that's surprising because I have not lost or gained any weight. I've actually been eating more. I normally do OMAD, 1 meal a day. And then in the past few weeks or so, I've had a couple of days where I just cannot fast. I am just starving, so I'll eat 2 meals a day. And that hasn't... I guess my body needed it because my weight hasn't fluctuated, but clearly my body is changing. Other thing was I used to be asexual, and when I was on testosterone, that didn't really change. I had a physical libido, I guess you could call it. I had the symptoms, I was having priapism, I was having all of that. Never attracted to anybody, and now I'm detransitioning, I discover that I am a lesbian. And I was thinking, is it just the testosterone and all the hormones I was taking that was messing with that? Or, been doing research into vitamin D lately, and I've been megadosing vitamin D. It's like 5,000 IUs every couple of days. I can't do it every day because my stomach is that sensitive, but it is a hormone very important to sexual function. So I'm wondering if maybe that was an issue too, because I was pretty malnourished for most of my life because I thought, eating a balanced diet was a healthy thing, and when you have a blood test, doctors have a very low standard of what your vitamin range should be, so yeah, I'm wondering if that could have played a part. Most detrans women often realize that they were actually just lesbians all along, but specifically butch lesbians. They didn't like to present as feminine, whereas for me, always been a girly girl, love to get dressed up. I think, recently if you look at me on Instagram, I did a kind of a gender-bent Arnie Cunningham from the movie Christine, and that's about as butch as I get. It's kind of glam butch, if you will. And I was doing this kind of 1950s rockabilly look. I loved it. I thought it was great. My mother did not. That's the thing, is she's always been paranoid about me looking too masculine, so maybe that was part of me just going, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna be a man. How about that? I don't know. But yeah, I am definitely only attracted to women, which is unfortunate because I want a baby, so... But I really don't know. It's hard. It's really complicated because I grew up asexual. So maybe it was more a case of I didn't have the libido, but I was still destined to be gay, I guess, if you will. I was thinking from a gay perspective and not realizing it. Because the way I look at men and women, is obviously inspired by the culture around me, but also my own internal feelings, perhaps ones that I wasn't fully aware of. Because thinking back, trying to be heterosexual and when I was a kid, trying to imagine being with a man, and it was just, it made my skin crawl, and I just thought, oh, I guess you have to get used to that, We all have to get married to a man, and that's the only option you have, because I was raised Catholic, so I didn't know what a gay was. But it hit me the other night. I was watching Miami Vice, which is really cool, by the way. And yes, I do tie everything back to pop culture. I'm sorry, it's how I talk. It's the language I speak. But I was watching Miami Vice, and it suddenly hit me what it was about masculinity that I so aspired to. And it's the James Bond thing. It is, in this particular case, Sonny Crockett, Don Johnson, walking into a room, walking into a party, all female eyes on him. It's just that swagger, it's that charisma, it's that power. And I think that's what I was drawn to more than anything. And even now, so when I was watching that episode only a few days ago, I kind of felt dysphoric, and what is that about? I don't really want to be a man, do I? And it is more to do with women will never look at me that way. Unless you are specifically seeking out the gay community, going to queer nightclubs and what have you. Yeah. In most social circumstances, I am not going to have that impact. I'm not going to have that effect on women. But, I am confident, and I am told I have charisma, so I can at least have some of that, but it's not quite the same. I guess that was what I was yearning for, is for people to see me like that, particularly for women to see me like that. But transitioning, I realized, I don't look like Don Johnson, I look like Pee Wee Herman, so now no one's attracted to me. And that was another thing too, being asexual, it was just kind of nice to not have male attention. That was probably the biggest reason why I transitioned in the first place, is I didn't want men looking at me. I was just so sick of it. I didn't want them to notice me, so it was nice to be in disguise for a little while. But then that kind of got tiring, and I think I was starting to develop feelings and wanting to date and wanting to start a family. And I thought, well, I actually kind of want someone to notice me. Not men, but women, There was someone in the comment section saying, well, if you find men so disgusting, why did you want to be a man? Well, wanting to be something is very different to wanting to be with something, By that logic, every man would be gay, I suppose. But yeah, there's a lot of great things about being male, socially and physically being male. And I think a lot of what I was searching for was just power. Unlimited power. Yeah. I have always kind of been that way. Not to sound like a sociopath, but I do really think a lot in terms of power and control and those social dynamics there, and I do like to be in charge. So yeah, maybe that's just part of the cycle. Who knows, really? When it comes to psychology, you just got all these disparate pieces of a puzzle, and you've got to put it together into a narrative. Reality doesn't really work that way. We're trying to make a story, but that's the thing. Humans are stories. That's all we are. So even if reality doesn't reflect that, it doesn't matter, because our psychological reality is a totally different thing. It's been really interesting reading the response to my videos in the comments, and it's quite shocking how much people, maybe they're not, it's not that they're not listening, it's just that they're projecting so much of their own psychology, their own insecurities, their own biases onto what I'm saying. So it's fascinating to see what they took out of what I was saying. And I'm realizing it does take a lot of confidence and self-esteem to put yourself out there on YouTube. I mean, for me, obviously not having emotional pain and fear or any of those things, it doesn't really bother me. So if someone says something that clearly isn't true about me, I can spot that right away. So we had someone say that, oh, it was this trans woman who sent me this bloody Tolstoy length comment and then emails, and I basically skim read them, and what I got out of it was that, I mean, the line that really stood out to me was, it just seems like your videos scream that you're still transgender and you're in denial, and that it's being female is kind of drag to you. I'm like, are you talking about me or you? Because that sounds like you're talking about you, very much so. I am just embracing who I am. I guess for someone who is transgender, it might seem like some kind of conversion therapy, like I've been told by somebody that now I have to be super feminine. But no, I'm not Connor. I don't want to be a man. I want some of the social perks that come with being a man. But yeah, I don't want that, and I've always been perfectly comfortable being a woman. It was very much just social dysphoria that pushed me over the edge into madness. And yeah, also now, not to get too TMI, but when it comes to sex, I am the penetrator rather than penetratee. So that was probably also causing me to think I had genital dysphoria, and just, yeah, perpetuating a lot of myths and confusion there within myself. But no, it's called a strap-on. You know, that's fine. That's normal. Doesn't mean you want to be a man. Just a lot of people did not understand emotional analgesia at all. They basically were saying that I'm not in touch with my emotions, that I must have alexithymia, which is a condition where people are not aware of their own feelings. Now, I know 100% that I do not have alexithymia. Looked into it. I talked about it in the bloody video. They don't bloody listen. But I talked about it, that in order to have alexithymia, you have to have no imagination. I have hyperphantasia, not hyperphantasia, which is an excessive imagination, which is probably how I got into this whole problem in the first place, thinking I was a robot man. But I cannot feel emotional pain. It's not that I don't have emotions. I'm a pretty positive, passionate person. I'm told I'm quite funny. And I think I'm actually enjoying life more than people who have emotional pain. It's just that, I could never be traumatized. I could never have PTSD. I could never really get angry. I can't understand those things. So that's what emotional analgesia is. And it has its own, it has a lot of perks, don't get me wrong, but the downside is that with a situation like thinking I was transgender and then thinking I was a robot, there's no warning signs there. I do find it quite insulting that people think, oh, well, you just got to get more in touch with your emotions. I am bloody in touch with my emotions. Oh, man, like when I listen to music or watch movies, just the intense, inspiring emotions that conjures up. I go to places that I wonder if most other people do. And I can definitely feel positive emotions, but I just don't know what it's like to suffer. There's this whole element of the human experience that I just don't get. There was also a surprising number of people in the comments who are into astrology, and they're saying, you're a Capricorn, that explains it doesn't matter what time of the fucking year I was born. That doesn't, highly illogical, but oh well. It really surprises me that I was able to just overcome a lot of these issues by myself, just by thinking hard and giving it time. I do think the testosterone was probably making me crazier than I already was. And it was actually increasing dysphoria in terms of Connor increasingly hated his body more, my body, more and more and more, and there was this insurmountable dysmorphia, that realization that, well, you can't become a robot, you are this biological form, and that made him so disgusted. Every aspect of being human was disgusting to him, and I don't have that at all. I want to go through pregnancy, and I am, a sexual person now. So that disgust factor is just gone. I don't know what that was, but logically I know that, well, yeah, being a robot is superior, and there's a lot of gross things that the human body does, and I don't care. I never thought I'd say that. People who know me probably surprised to hear that coming out of my mouth. The downside is that I was developing a libido as I was getting over all of that weird robot stuff. So now I would describe myself as a mechanophile, have weird feelings about cars and robots, but it's weirdly enough, so I see myself with a car. I want to be with a car, but when it comes to robots, there's still kind of the audience surrogate, the POV, where I love seeing girls with robots, but I'm kind of seeing myself from the robot's perspective, seeing it from the robot's perspective. So I don't know. Sexuality is a weird thing. So that's probably enough preamble. Now on to the questions. Alter Walker asked, did you try other diets before going with carnivore, and if so, which ones, and did they help with either chronic fatigue or autism-related problems/symptoms? I was on a balanced diet and basically, high carb, low fat, caloric restriction, and I was just so tiny, so skinny. I should get photos of my mum. She kept this period costume, 1880s costume I made at WAPA, Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts, if you're not aware. Costume department, that's what I did. I made this period costume, and I tried it on recently, and it's just like, barely get my arms in. I don't know if I'm gonna continue to get smaller. I'm on the carnivore diet, so that preserves muscle mass, and I like being a little bit bulky. I think that was a bit of my problem too, why I felt dysphoric, is that I was just so petite and so frail, and I didn't like that. I'm all about the power. It's quite fun that I can pitch my voice down low. I have had some dickheads in the... I've moved me anime fringe around. Hang on. There we go. That's where it's supposed to... I'm not used to... This is not how hair normally works. I've had some people in the comment section, I'm sure they mean well, and they're like, you should try vocal training, and look at this YouTube channel, they'll teach you how to talk like a lady. Don't fucking care. Can't mess with perfection. I like the way I sound now. I sounded like a tiny baby girl. Didn't like that, so I feel like now, just being older helps, but I am beefier, and I have a deeper voice. Kind of like the Major in Ghost in the Shell. So I feel that I am taken more seriously, that I'm treated with a bit more respect, so I'm not complaining. And enough people are comparing me to Scarlett Johansson, Ghost in the Shell again, and the deeper voice kind of helps. So ultimate cosplay accuracy, guys. Yeah, doing a standard diet, then I had chronic fatigue syndrome. Oh yes, sorry. I was doing a standard diet. Then I did bodybuilding, and I was doing the stupid diet that they all tell you to... I don't know if that's changed now. I haven't looked into the bodybuilding community in a long time, but back then, it was all like, you gotta do the bulking phase and the cutting phase, and it's just a lot of hydrogenated oils and carbohydrates, and it's horrible. It is just carcinogenic. And then I got chronic fatigue syndrome, and I realized, well, I can't be eating so many meals all day every day, and just I was huge for me. I put on a lot of weight. I'll just throw up a photo of that. Why not? Started looking around for other options, and that's where I found keto, and that just seemed like the perfect thing. I don't even know how I discovered keto. I think it was just sort of trending at the time, so it's just in my peripherals. Did that, felt pretty good, but my digestive health just kept getting worse and worse and worse, and I was basically vegan. I was high fiber diet, lots of plants, a little bit of meat, because I thought that was healthy. And I've told my whole story about switching over to carnivore. There's actually a video on Meat RX. It's in my playlist of all my guest appearances and other things. Gone into the whole story. So, yeah, I was really, really sick. I was in a wheelchair. I was really frail. All sorts of issues. switched to carnivore, and that's when I really had all the health benefits, because before that, all I was really doing was keeping my weight under control and not losing muscle mass. None of those other diets really did anything for me until carnivore. With your chronic fatigue illness, did you also have fibromyalgia or multiple chemical sensitivity or other symptoms like allergies or a low-grade viral? Yes, so I have fibromyalgia. I do. It comes and goes. Just the other night, I was totally fine. Went out. I was just watching a movie at a mate's house. We went for a little bit of walk around the neighborhood. Totally fine. Come home, watch a movie. It's fine. Towards the end of that movie, I had to switch up. I had really intense nausea, vertigo. Went to bed, and then I woke up again maybe a few minutes later, and I really intense pain that's just all over my body. I was convulsing, and yeah, there's nothing you can really do. But I do take ibuprofen or aspirin, whatever I got on me, and that does help to a degree. I've never found any prescription painkillers really helped. So yeah, there's nothing I can do about it, but at least for the most part, it's not debilitating. And what was multiple chemical sensitivity. Don't have that, but I did develop Sjogren's syndrome after chronic fatigue syndrome, maybe. Because I always had dry skin. I was always prone to very dry skin, but now I have to spit out this really dry white saliva multiple times a day. I have very dry skin, and then detransitioning, wearing makeup for the first time in years. Oh, my eyes get so red and weepy, so I'm having to wear all this hypoallergenic stuff. So I didn't really have allergies before that, now I do. And what else? Do I eat dairy products or any other non-meat foods? So my theory is basically if you can handle it, you can eat it. So I was very, very strict carnivore at the beginning. It was just meat. And I felt a lot better adding dairy. Digestion was better. Energy was better. I was able to fast for longer. I was much more satiated. Doesn't seem to affect my weight or anything, or my health in any other way. So I figure, well, if I feel better on it, let's have it. I have spices. Never had an issue with those. I will have tea occasionally, mostly decaffeinated because caffeine causes acid reflux in me. I used to drink tea 2 and 3 times a day. I was a tea connoisseur. I loved it, and I miss it. But with the Sjogren's syndrome, some days there's a horrible sweet taste in my mouth for no particular reason. Brushing my teeth kind of helps, or mouthwash. But that means that I can't really drink tea when my mouth feels like that, because it's like drinking orange juice after brushing your teeth. It's not good. And I think that's about it. I even have to be really careful about what supplements I take. So vitamin D, I'll take every couple of days. That seems to be as often as I can handle it. If I'm taking ibuprofen or aspirin, I can't take too many. Maybe 1 a day is probably as much as I can handle. Alter also asks, I believe you said that the carnivore diet cured you of your autism symptoms, and I'd love to hear what that looked like, how you experienced that. So yes, I really do need to make a video just focusing on autism specifically. I haven't done that, I think because there is so much attention being put on detransitioning. Everyone's asking me questions about that, so I haven't really had time to focus. So I do really want to go in depth on just how life-changing, mind-blowing it is to just see from these 2 different perspectives of neurodivergent and neurotypical. And yeah, I might not have actual autism. We don't know jack shit about autism, let's be honest here. So I was watching The Queen's Gambit, as everyone in 2021 is legally required to do, I'm told. And she has a lot of autism symptoms. But then I got into a discussion with a friend, and then she said, well, how do we know she was born that way? Because we don't know what she was like before that. It may be a case of extreme trauma from losing her family brought about these autism symptoms. And I did some more digging into that. And sure enough, yeah, a lot of the symptoms that abused children, traumatized children demonstrate are autistic ones. So it makes me think that, you know, it's a symptom. I don't think it's the illness in and of itself. Like chronic fatigue syndrome, I got that from Balmer Forest virus. You could get that from Ross River. You could get that from coronavirus. You could get that from anything. So to say that autism is any one thing, I really question that. But I have no evidence because no one knows the truth right now. LVRE asks, how much or little do you think internalized misogyny affected your decision to transition? How do you feel about having a female body now, and how did you feel at the time you identified as transgender? I think absolutely. Internalized misogyny played a huge part in me thinking that being female wasn't good enough, or that you had to fit a certain standard to be a woman. And my mother definitely wasn't a help in that. And even now, she has these very rigid ideas of what a woman should be. And I almost feel like I should just start dressing super butch around her just to offend her. Before, when I was autistic and younger, more naive, and just didn't have much of a sense of the world, I trusted her and I thought her opinions were fact, basically, and I didn't question them. And now I'm an adult, I can kind of stand back and go, oh no, that's your own internalized biases. I don't have to listen to your bullshit. So yes, one of the things I really want to push for is better education and support for young women and teenage girls, because going through female puberty is a really difficult thing, and I don't think we're preparing young women to accept their bodies and accept themselves, and to understand that men are gonna make you feel uncomfortable, but that has nothing to do with you, and you are doing nothing wrong. Right now, I've got the cleavage up because I want to, because I like the way I look. I don't care if someone thinks I'm a skanky hoe. I really don't. It is my body and I'll do with it what I wish. It is not a demonstration of one's character to have one's cleavage on display. And, I've never had boobs before also, so there's a bit of a novelty in that. And if I get more views because I got boobs, is that such a bad thing? I don't think so. Like and subscribe for my boobs. But yeah, definitely there was this pressure to be modest and to present a certain way and to acquiesce to the whims of men, and just all this very old-fashioned bullshit that I didn't realize was old-fashioned bullshit that I was raised with and didn't question. But yeah, how do I feel about my body now? Very appreciative. This is the one body we have, and I've been looking into Lacanian psychology lately, which is a whole thing. I was looking into it because of Blade Runner 2049. I'm doing a podcast, Minute 2049, on my Patreon, and Lacanian psychologists seem to love to analyze Blade Runner a lot, and now I've been delving into their kind of philosophy. It makes sense, because Lacanian, long story short, it's all about how we perceive ourselves, in that there's this insurmountable difference between who we see ourselves inside our head. We contain multitudes. We are a universe inside of our own minds. And then we look at our reflection, we go, is that it? Is that what I am? Is that what other people see? And then we can distort that, and we think of ourselves as something that we aren't, that someone might think of themselves as, okay, when you're trans, oh, I'm not manly enough, or I'm not feminine enough, or whatever it is. We can very easily distort our self-image. So, yes, looking into Lacanian psychology has actually helped me to become more comfortable with my body, because I think I am this body. I am nothing but this body. This is a bit of a tangent, but there's something called a tulpa. And it's this kind of meditative practice where you create a kind of imaginary friend, if you will. And my imaginary friend, while I was really sick, in this first few years of having chronic fatigue syndrome, for the second time, long story. Anyway, it was Bane. Bane from Batman, which is, I know, very original. But he really was the perfect tulpa for me, because he is a character who is very aware that we are nothing but our bodies, and he uses that body as a weapon, and he pushes it to the absolute peak. He is all about endurance and discipline and self-control, and just he's a very significant character for me. And perhaps I sort of mistook my admiration for him as wanting to be male, but it's not. It is just that admiration of personal strength and discipline. And so I think about him a lot lately. I was thinking about him or interacting with him when I was at my weakest point. He sort of mentally helped me get through that hard stretch of my chronic fatigue. And then he came back lately in the sense that it is embracing that all that we are is this biological, sweating, pissing, shitting mass that will rot and die one day. That is all we are. And the sooner you come to terms with that and not fantasize about being a cyborg or a robot or, whatever other fantasy bullshit helps you sleep at night, the sooner you get over that, the better, because there's nothing to be afraid of. Really. There isn't. I don't know what my issue was. Well, it wasn't my issues, it was Connor's issues. Which are my issues? Because he's technically me. What is consciousness? Where does it come from? Magnets? Who can say? But when I first started identifying as transgender, biggest fucking red flag is that I didn't really have gender dysphoria. I didn't have a problem with my boobs. I didn't have genital dysphoria, really. It was just that the few times I was kind of thinking about sex, it was as the penetrator. The penetrator. Yeah, so I had some confusion there, and if I had seen a therapist, I think they would have figured this stuff out. I'm actually going to try to pursue a lawsuit if I can. Don't really have a lot of money, but we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to be bigger and stronger and look like a man. And I always had very masculine interests. I think I have more masculine body language, especially back then. So it wasn't like I was one of those transgender kids who, I'm a demi boy, but I'm gonna be super girly and wear makeup and heels and just... Okay. Yeah, I think I was very much drawn to just the aesthetics of masculinity and the social power. It was all about power, physical power and social power. Janie Evans asks, why do we have so many labels now? Why do we have so many goddamn labels? I ask myself that every day. Yeah, I think we're in this point in time where we are being very experimental and open and free with social identities. That is great. But it's gone to the point now where it's kind of gone too far. It's gone the opposite way, where I've always had an issue with non-binary. Always, even when I was transgender, I just went, well, why do you have to be non-binary? Why can't you just be happy as a woman who presents very masculine, or as a man who presents very feminine? Why do we have to create 50 million different gender labels and then expect total strangers to be able to guess what your special snowflake, unicorn, rainbow pronoun is? I think that is just getting into ridiculous territory. I would describe myself as still very liberal, very left-leaning. I vote that way. Ironically, in Australia, in WA, the Labour Party is liberal and the Liberal Party is conservative. Don't ask me. But I think I'm getting to a point now where I understand that I am able to speak openly and criticize these things, and I'm not going to be publicly executed. We do need to have these conversations, and we do need to be offended sometimes. We need that kind of conflict of debate to learn and understand. And the SJW culture is basically a bunch of people who get off on outrage, and they're often getting outraged over things that don't affect them personally, and they're perpetuating these same echo chamber ideas. And the moment anyone questions it, even questions, they're not attacking, they're just questioning, well, why is that? Blocked. No discussion. I can't stand it. But yeah, I think the whole 50 million genders things just comes from people wanting to explore their identity and wanting to have more specific language to define themselves. But I think what's going to happen in the long run is we're going to settle down and just go, look, there are butch women and there are effeminate men. That's all it basically comes down to. I mean, if you really, really look at all these different labels, it's just 50 million ways to say the same thing. So, and that's why I also got fed up with the asexual community, because there were people saying, oh, I'm demisexual and I'm gray asexual, and gray asexual just means that you don't have a high libido and you aren't gonna jump into bed with the first person who asks you if you want to, you know? I think it's almost this desire to pathologize. That's what it is, because we're in a time now where psychology is much more mainstream, and we're talking about it a lot more, and so we are diagnosing a lot more things, and I think we're kind of taking that same attitude with our sexuality and our gender in terms of, oh, you can't just be a woman who doesn't like to dress up and be feminine, and who, you know, has a low libido, still wants a partner, but, you know, it takes a long time for them to make that emotional connection to want to have sex. No, now you have to be a grey, romantic, asexual, non-binary person. We're just making things very confusing. And actually, I think that kind of ties into denying biology. We're getting to a point now with all these different labels where I was listening to an interview with a woman who, I think she's basically a midwife, not technically a midwife, but that's basically she's a midwife. And she was doing this training course, and they said that you're not allowed to refer to them as pregnant women, you have to say birthing people, and you can't say breastfeeder, you have to say chest feeder. Just on the odd chance that someone in that room is non-binary or trans male and wanting to get pregnant. It's like, how many trans men want to fall pregnant? It must be like 0.1%, 0.001%. It must be absolutely minimal. So in a way, we're reducing women to their biology so that we don't offend the tiny minority of people who are denying their own biology. And again, I don't think that transsexuality is a myth. I do think there are some people who, for whatever reason, this is the only way that they're going to thrive. They have to transition, and they feel better that way. But we don't know how to test for that. All we had was, back in the days, that the statistics showed a fairly steady population of trans people, and then there was suddenly this explosion. I think a lot of people who are identifying as non-binary are deeply uncomfortable about their own biology, and that's a problem. Therapists need to address this. We shouldn't be affirming that which cannot be changed. In my case, having a therapist trying to affirm my robot identity, what the fuck is that about? I can't be a robot. Why would you tell me that? You just made me crazier, you dumb bitch. So, and also, another lawsuit I'd like to carry out against that therapist. But yeah, I think we are in a culture now that is so violently protesting against the laws of nature and biology, and that's not healthy. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, I guess. I think my conclusion with all of this is that our biology doesn't define who we are. That's not the enemy here. It's society and the social stereotypes, the social dysphoria. That's really the enemy here, and that's where a lot of these transgender people are getting confused. Well, they think they're transgender, when in reality, they have social dysphoria. They don't like, and this is the reason why there's probably more trans men than trans women right now, is that girls just hate the way that they're being treated, and I don't blame them, and it takes a lot of courage to be a woman in society, I think, in any time period. So no, I think your biology does not define who you are, but you don't have to modify it. You have to modify society to be more accepting, to not treat women differently from men. Rasif Kandoka says, what are your thoughts on people who come out as transgender and declare themselves as members of the opposite sex despite having no physical transformations? Oh my god. Yeah, they're transtrenders. They're people who... I remember I saw this blog once and the top of the page said, such and such is not a lady. And there's this photo of this very big woman, big titties, big old hips, long hair, glamorous 1950s pinup makeup, 1950s dress. But she's not a lady. She's non-binary. I'm sorry, what? I don't think there is any such thing as non-binary, first of all. Like, look at David Bowie. Look at Annie Lennox. Look at all these famous androgynous people over history. They never denied what their biological sex was. They denied the prism that society had put that sex into. You know what I mean? Why can't we get back to that? So, yeah, the people who claim that they're transgender but make no effort to change their physical appearance, that's a mental illness. That I don't know what that is, but that's delusional. And I had one person in the comment section in one of my videos. I couldn't reply because YouTube's system is fucked, and it kept deleting the comment, but they said to me, "Oh, you misunderstand what non-binary is." I said, "Okay, what is it then?" They said, "Oh, it's this way of exploring your identity, and for me, I switch back and forth, and sometimes I just feel so disgusted by my male body." I went, "Yeah, that's dissociation, buddy. That's a mental illness. You need help for that." And that's what was happening to me. I was dissociating, but society is telling us right now that that's gender dysphoria. It's not. It's absolutely not. L. Smith asks, "What do I do for a living?" Sleep. Yes, I've had chronic fatigue syndrome for 3 years. I've been on the disability pension for a little over a year. And I do what I can. So I have my Movies by Minute podcast. I review Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Tron Legacy, and Blade Runner 2049 1 minute at a time. I'll also do RoboCop. So yeah, that's a pretty full-time job. I also do these videos once a month. I have Patreon, so I make a little bit of money through that. I used to do costume commissions. I was studying to be a librarian, but I can't really do any of that. So, yeah, I guess unemployed right now. What careers am I interested in? Oh, every career. I'm just someone who is, I don't know, a polymath, a Renaissance woman, if you will. I love a lot of things in arts and sciences. I'm doing a mechanics course right now. I'm just so fascinated with how machinery works, and I don't know how to. I know how to drive a car. I don't have my license, but I could theoretically take an engine apart and put it back together again. Let's see what else was. I have studied art, fashion, costume. Librarianship was the last thing I did. I feel like maybe I should be a nutritionist, although to get a degree you have to be taught by people who will tell you the wrong thing. That's kind of the ultimate irony, that professional nutritionists are not pro-carnivore or pro-paleo, or they're still stuck with a lot of the old ideas. I feel like I want to be an advocate for detransitioners, for autism, for all sorts of social issues. I love podcasting, I love making videos. I kind of feel like I could dabble in a lot of things, which means that it's actually kind of hard to know if I had to pick a career, what it would actually be. And then I also want to be a mother, so that's a pretty full-time job in and of itself. The more I think about it, and I've had a good long time to think about it, I kind of want a job that isn't so demanding, that gives me a lot of free time to work on my own creative projects, because that's really what it is. A job to me would just be something to supplement my real passions. Writing is another, I didn't mention that. I love writing creative fiction. So I think mechanic would be a lot of fun, because it's just this physical job that is fairly straightforward, and I get to play with cars all day. That's pretty cool. What is my tertiary education? So yeah, as I mentioned, I didn't mention in this video, but I was kicked out of high school in the 3rd year, so year 10. Then I did a little graphic design course at TAFE, went to a different TAFE, did fashion design, tried to get into WAPA, didn't get in the first try, tried the next year, did 2 years there, got chronic fatigue, and then for that brief period of time where my chronic fatigue was in remission, I was doing the librarianship course, and yeah, so that I've never graduated anything. That's the frustrating thing, is I could absolutely graduate very easily if I didn't just sleep all the fucking time, didn't have all these health issues. That's basically it. My body has been a prison most of my life. With the autism symptoms or whatever else that's afflicted me, I have always dealt with... Oh, and I'm just remembering I was anemic as well, probably based on my terrible diet when I was a kid. Yeah, I was so weak, I was so sick, I had all these psychological and physical issues. That's probably why I did feel dysphoric and disconnected from my body. And how do I make friends? Very easily. I don't know what they really mean by this question, but yeah, it's never been an issue for me. I just walk into a room, start chatting with people, and then they're my friends. I don't know. You just do it. But more practically, I suppose, if they are asking how does one, in fact, make friends, check out Charisma on Command. It's this really great YouTube channel that, especially when I was autistic, very handy learning social communication skills. So yeah, those videos are very useful. Alright, so that is all the questions. Thanks for watching, thanks for asking questions, and see you, Space Cowboy.